So, this is the final video in the series here, where we're talking about when the end comes. Because we've established that we don't know, we as Bible students are not going to know when it comes. Only Jehovah knows the day and hour, and even his son may not know it. The last video, I said I'd talk about the 42 months. Last video we established about the beasts. We had the seven-headed wild beast, which were the world ruling empires of Bible prophecy, starting with Egypt. When the Revelation was recorded by John, it was Rome, which was the fifth beast, the sixth beast, and then of course the seventh beast is the Anglo-American world power, the Western world as we know it. And then the eighth beast we established was the United Nations, and maybe a head of state, likely someone who announces peace and security, possibly Trump, but more likely of someone following Trump, establishing an established worldwide peace and security that would convince people so that they would give it worship, and that when they give the beast the worship, they would have 666 on the top. This wild beast would also have the full support of the world's religions, and the Bible calls them Babylon the Great. Now I'm going to start from this point onwards, because there comes a point in Bible history. Jehovah's Witnesses claim that the last days began around 1914, and that they, as the major slave of Jesus Christ, has been preaching of this good news of the kingdom. They're not the only slave, but they're the main slave, and they carry God's name, Jehovah. And they correctly teach that it's vital to be politically neutral, so that their allegiance is only towards the kingdom by Jesus Christ. The other religions of the world are identified by supporting political organisations such as the United Nations, you see. And it's the United Nations and that is part of the scarlet-coloured wild beast. Now, some of the prophecies that we're going to have a glance at today, Jehovah's Witnesses claim were fulfilled in 1918, 1919, where they talk about the 42 months, they talk about the imprisonment of the president of the Watchtower plus all the directors, and that was fulfilled then. You could say that was part of the prophecy, but the 42 months starts when Jesus sits on his glorious throne, and there's a period that is covered called the Great Tribulation. Now, the reason I'm saying that that's the 42 months finally is because in the first century, when Jerusalem was surrounded by encamped armies, it was only then 42 months when the Christians fled Jerusalem before it was destroyed. It faced its Armageddon. We know the Armageddon is a worldwide event because it says Jesus comes to judge all the nations. So it's that event. So the 42 months, I believe, is a parallel period like it was in the first century. There's a set period. That hasn't started yet. We will know when that starts because there's a final signal mentioned. Peace and security is announced by a leading figure, the eighth king, who makes up the scarlet-coloured wild beast with the full support of the United Nations. And it's likely to be someone representing the West, the Anglo-American world power, NATO, the Western world, Britain and America. Britain also has a huge control over the financial interests, and you've got Davos. That's all interconnected as well. So I'm just going to show you a picture or two, and then I better get on with it because my time is limited otherwise. So there's the Lamb. That is the seventh world power of Bible history, and that empowers the beast. You see all the people kneeling before the beast? That's the scarlet-coloured wild beast. That is the reflection of that's the one that represents all the beasts of the past in one power. That's when the two-horned lamb gives that the power, and then then, let's see if we've got any more to show you. Then that beast, or supported by the world religion, eventually turns on world religion and, of course, Christ's followers. Does it go that way? Yes. And turns on Christ's followers as well. And then we have one confirmation of the whole beast. So you've got the seven-headed wild beast starting back in Egypt, coming up to today, the Western world, led by the Anglo-American world power. That one there then breathes power into the scarlet-coloured wild beast. You've also got another beast there. You notice the dragon? The dragon, of course, is the heavenly governments over the human governments. That is led by Satan and his demon princes. We know that demon princes have control of countries. It talks about one in Daniel, where he was the prince of Persia. Is there anything more to show on that? No, there isn't. So, Satan is controlling these, and I'm now referring to something on jw.org, where I'm trying to find out about the 42 months. And this is it took me to the Daniel book, published just before the year 2000, chapter 17, page 286. It says here, according to Daniel 7, it says, a tiny defenceless group of people come under vicious attack by a mighty world power. They survive intact and even experience a renewal, not as a result of their own strength, but because Jehovah God values them. He foretold these events would happen. Who, though, are these people? It says they're the holy ones of the Supreme One. Who would they be? Well, they would be those who are joining Jesus Christ in heaven in his governments. They're called his brothers. They make up also the bride of Christ. So there are some on earth today who represent Jesus Christ, and there are some who support them, that follow them. They're like the subjects of this future government. It says then, however, God's adversary, Satan, has been waging an all-out war against them, the anointed, and that's mentioned in Revelation chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. As a result, many people have been misled. He has promoted false religion, effectively filling the world with counterfeit Christians. You see, they're the ones that vote to support the political governments. They're the ones that pray for the United Nations. They're counterfeit Christians, and they put the national interests of the country where they are. For example, we've got the Church of England, which puts its allegiance to the King of England, just like you've got the Roman Catholics put their allegiance to the Pope, who prays for the United Nations. So it says here, others simply despair over finding the true religion, because there's so much false religion, they despair. We meet them every day we go out in our Bible ministry, and if you're one of those, I can sympathise. Jehovah's Witnesses' only difference is that they found what they believe is the answer. They found those who represent Jesus' kingdom, and so they kind of joined putting their spiritual vote in with Christ's government rather than human governments that are supported by that dragon. It says here, how will people who exercise faith fare during this dark time, or the Great Tribulation? It says here, during that time your people will escape everyone who is found in the book written in the book. And Jesus referred to these words as well. He says here, pay attention that you don't become weighed down with anxieties of life, heavy drinking. Suddenly the day will be instantly upon you as a snare, for it will come upon all those on the face of the earth. Keep awake then, make supplication that you may succeed in escaping all these things, and that's Luke 21:34 onwards. In Revelation 20 it says, I saw thrones, and those who sat on them were given authority to judge. Yes, I saw the souls of those executed for the witness they gave about speaking with Jesus. because they did not worship the wild beast or its image, the image being the red, the scarlet coloured wild beast. So that's the final king, and that final king rules just for 1 hour. In biblical terms, that's just a short period. I believe that to be because that is the beginning, the 1 hour between the beginning of the Great Tribulation, the announcement of peace and security, and Armageddon. So that 1 hour is 42 months. He says they will be priests of God and of Christ and will rule as kings with him for 1,000 years. So those on earth who get killed, and they preach as well to the governments, they get killed, but they join Jesus straight away in heaven and start ruling with him as kings and priests. The nice reassuring thing is, what I've just read, is that those who support them, who have the earthly hope of going into the new world, the meek, they will be protected and cared for, just like Noah was protected, just like the first century Christians were protected when they fled Jerusalem. They went to the mountains of Pella, and when the Roman armies returned, obviously they destroyed Jerusalem, but the Christians survived as a group. So what are we looking at here? Is there anything else to say? Okay, now Jehovah's Witnesses take the 42 months to start in 1918 and then finish in 1922. But I believe the main fulfilment is yet ahead of us. Now, that's how close is it? Well, C.T. Russell felt that the last days began in 1874. That was 6,000 years of recorded human history. Then you add 1,000 years for the 1,000 years of Christ. That date was discovered to be wrong in the 1930s or so, and it was understood to be 1974-75. Now, if that date is correct, if that is 6,000 years from the creation of Adam to now, if that is 6,000 years and Jesus Christ's 1,000-year reign follows it, then the beginning of the end started in 1974-75. And if you take the generation from that point, as Jehovah's Witnesses interpreted the generation in 1914, which would be around about 70 years, we are some 51 years into it. So that means that there is plenty of time for the final signal, the announcement of peace and security, the beginning of the Great Tribulation, the instruction by the governments of the world under a leading head with the blessing of the United Nations, the scarlet-coloured wild beast. They would have the 42 months to make everybody worship them. Those who don't worship them get saved by Jesus Christ, or they're remembered if they've died. Maybe they died in a nuclear explosion or something. Then they will be on Christ's list to be resurrected again. What a marvellous hope that would be. So that's where we stand. So many people say, oh, it's gone on for so long. But really, if you take that 1974-75 date, we've only gone 51 years into the time of the end, concluding with the 42 months. And when that starts, all hell will break loose, both in the money markets. What we've seen the beginning of this year, the crazy behaviour of President Trump. I have another video on that actually, but it's a bit flippant. That's on the Gaz channel. Bible Truths by Gaz. So that's the original channel that I started when I found that we weren't going in the ministry during COVID. I felt it was wrong, and I needed to do something, and that's why I started this channel. And then, of course, I noticed all these videos by all these anti-Jehovah's Witness group. And of course, they are foretold as well, as their former brothers would betray them. So when we have the 666 on our head, not literally. When Jehovah's Witnesses stand out as different and they're hiding and their relatives find out who used to be witnesses, they may say there's a load of Jehovah's Witnesses in that forest over there to the government officials. One bit of good news though I was reading in the one of the yearbook experiences was where there was persecution. Jehovah's Witnesses were hiding in a wood. The officials went there. They didn't see them. Now, if the angels are protecting Jehovah's Witnesses, it says there's an angel protecting a congregation, they can blind the minds so that the officials don't see them, and that would protect them, wouldn't it? So anyway, that's my series of videos on this topic. Watchtower Teachings Review. So there we are. So I've got my faithful mug again. Wish you well. There'll be lots more videos relating to the Watchtower, so please carry on and follow. And if you can subscribe, it will help the channel because it's lagging behind a bit because it's a much newer channel. So take care. But the purpose of these videos is basically Bible education, alerting to people that there is a wonderful future ahead, despite it being kind of the worst time to live in human history, in a sense. Because of how awful it's going to be, because this world is coming to an end. Satan is a bit like Adolf Hitler. He is rule or ruin. If he can let off all nuclear weapons, he will. The only way we will get protected is through Jesus Christ, his holy angels giving us protection when it comes to the crunch. So thank you very much. Take care. So that horrible dragon beast will be cast into the lake, it'll be cast into an abyss so that it can't mislead humans anymore. That's in Revelation 20. So take care, and I'll speak to you again. I went there last year. That's cold. Not much of a cup of tea. I'm going to go and make one now.